This is Lenny Wennerstrom, Common Sense Health Expert. Welcome to the Wild and Free Healthy You podcast. Without your health, there isn't much joy in life, so here we talk about all facets of health, including lots of unconventional strategies, tools, and solutions from a holistic point of view. This podcast is all about motivation, inspiration, and expansion of your mind, your body, and your spirit, because your health is your number one asset, and my job is to help you protect it. Now, on to today's episode of the Wild and Free Healthy You podcast. This podcast does not provide medical advice. The purpose is to promote consumer knowledge and information on various health topics. Always seek the advice of your qualified health practitioner. Welcome to the Wild and Free Healthy You podcast. My name is Lenny Wennerstrom, Common Sense Health Expert, and my awesome and amazing guest today is Dave Stetzer. And today we're going to talk about, I'll give you the big intro, the bio in a minute, but we're going to talk about the dangers of Wi-Fi, electricity. We're going to talk about some studies that he's done personally for over a year on animals and electricity. So you're definitely going to want to stay tuned for this. So let's talk about and Wi-Fi in your car, all this stuff we're going to talk about today. So let's go ahead and give his bio because it's amazing. By the way, thank you for your service, Dave. Dave Stetzer has been an electrician by training, education, and experience for over 40 years. He began his career in electricity in the U.S. Air Force in 1970, attending electronics school at Keesler Air Force Base. Did I say that right? Keesler?
Keesler, yeah.
Keesler, okay. That's the world's #1 electronics school at the time, and completed training as a ground radio communications electronics technician with top secret military. When I read this, I was like, top secret military? How very exciting. Military clearance, and later on crypto access. Dave's primary duties included diagnosing and repairing a variety of electronic equipment, including PC boards, Klystron, am I saying that correctly? Klystron boards, tubes, and integrated circuits, as well as highly classified military electronic equipment and crypto equipment, employing, among other things, spectrum analyzers, oscilloscopes, signal generators, and digital frequency counters. Can you guys tell he's already, like, this guy is like off the charts, credible and amazing. So after honorable discharge from the Air Force, Dave founded Stetzer Electric, Inc. and remains president and CEO to this day. Since the firm's inception, Dave has specialized in power control in industry, municipalities, and motor control centers. For nearly the past 2 decades, Dave has focused more attention on power quality analysis and troubleshooting, which led to the development of the STETZERiZER, which is Graham-Stetzer, filter and Microsurge Meter, named after him and his partner. During that time, Dave has been called on as an expert witness in electricity in several court cases, authored and co-authored numerous scientific papers, and traveled the world measuring, troubleshooting, and speaking about dirty electricity, which we're going to talk a lot about, ground current, and other electrical issues. Dave is also a senior member of the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, that's IEEE, and is actively involved in research projects around the world. Can you guys tell this is going to be an off-the-charts, fantabulous interview, and you're going to learn a lot about things that maybe that you cannot see unless you use his meter, but you are definitely being exposed. We all are. So, Dave, good morning to you in
Good morning.
Sunny Wisconsin, right? Where
It is today.
Yeah, where in Wisconsin are you?
We're by the Mississippi River, about 20 miles away the crow flies, kind of in the center. So we're between La Crosse and Eau Claire would be the 2 major cities.
Are there a lot of cows out there?
The what? Yes, there was actually getting to be less cows.
Yeah, there are less cows because of all the people growing.
Farms are going. The small farms are going out of business, and large farms are taking it over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so, but you guys are still very, very much cheeseheads, right?
Oh yeah.
Are you like a rabid fan?
Not as much as some.
Do you wear when you do go to games and put your big cheese head thing on your?
No, I don't. My kids probably did, but I never did.
I'm amazed you don't have one in your office. I was looking for your little cheese head thing.
No, not quite that. I don't have that much time as some people do.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but fun is always good. So let's start talking about, when we talked last week, we were talking about, or I guess it was earlier this week, but one of the things that fascinated me that we can start this off with was breast cancer, men and women in call centers. And so let's just start having a conversation about like what you do and how you started. And I mean, we know from your bio how you started, but like some of these things that we talked about just were a little bit mind blowing. Not a little bit; they were a lot.
Well, I didn't get into this human health thing for till about 1998, something like that. What happened was there's something people like to call stray voltage. First of all, voltage doesn't stray; it goes where people put it. It's governed by the laws of physics. And so their cows were getting sick. They wouldn't conceive. The milk production was down, things like that. So what happened was they wanted to get somebody legitimate electrician or somebody that would come along and you know, solve this issue. And of course, they blamed the electric utilities. Excuse me, are we messing this up here?
No, it's okay. It's live. You know,
Oh, sorry.
I mean, it's not live, but things happen. Don't worry about it.
Oh, okay.
That sounds like your Skype.
Yeah, but now how do I get back to you here? Okay.
You are back. You're fine.
Okay, there. I'm sorry about that.
No,
People.
not a problem.
Okay, we're live in the office, so I can't.
Yeah, that is just live. Yeah,
so,
that's fine.
Okay. So what happened was these dairy farmers, and the farmers are very smart people, and so they noticed the cows, weren't producing milk, things like that. So they thought it was ground current, and the electric utilities and the public service commissions in most states got together and they called it stray voltage. So if we name it stray voltage, then it's sort of like who's responsible for it. And I always use the analogy, if you get bit by a dog, I mean, there's stray dogs and there's stray cats, but if you get bit by a dog and doesn't have a collar on, you have no idea who it is. Sorry about that. Have no idea who it is. Who pays for the stitches? You do.
Right.
But if you go ahead and you get bit by a dog that has a collar on it and the name and everything is there, that's the guy that's going to pay for the stitches. So they call it stray voltage. It doesn't stray. So who's responsible for it? So anyway, the farmers noticed this, and so I took a case and I went out and then found it right away. It's ground current. But one of the things that the farmers said is, this doesn't just affect my cows, it affects my wife. She goes into the barn, she passes out, she gets heart palpitations. They come and pick her up with an ambulance. She sits there for an hour on the ambulance, and by the time she gets to the hospital, nothing's wrong with her. And so these symptoms they started listing were the same symptoms that we heard about way back years ago, okay, in the military. And it's called the symptoms of radio wave sickness. What it is it's a bunch of symptoms that if you look at the modern day diseases like chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, ADD, ADHD, they're the same, they overlay. And so it's like, well, the only way that you could get those symptoms, it could be be like radio wave sickness, would be as if you were exposed to high frequencies. So then the question becomes, where are you being exposed to them from? And remember, this is back in 1998. So really nobody had cell phones. And if you did, it was in your car, and it was those big things, that you flip the thing with.
Right.
The receiver.
In the center.
There was no cell towers next to, nobody had decked phones. Wi-Fi was non-existent. So it's like, where are you getting exposed to this stuff from? But we still had computers, and it was actually, that's where we found the dirty power. And like computers would create high frequency transients, because all our electronic equipment nowadays runs with DC power. It always has, okay?
Can I just ask you, so when you say stray and dirty, is that the same thing? So
it's two different things. So the dirty electricity, okay, what happens is when we create these high frequencies that are on the line, remember the power grid was built back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, okay? And so what happens is we have a primary neutral wire that takes all the current back to the substation. And when you have linear loads that are non-electronic, light bulbs, motors, heaters, things like that, when the power grid was built, that's what we used. The imbalance current went back on the neutral to the substation. Now when we have electronic loads, okay, then we chop up the sine wave and we have dirty electricity. Well, when we have the dirty electricity, basically it's high frequency transits on the wire. So it can't handle the wire that takes it back to the substation, it's not big enough. It can't handle it. So what the utility did in 1992 is they put it in the ground, and they used the ground to take it back. So now the dirty electricity created a bigger stray voltage or ground current problem, okay? And the problem is it's high frequency currents, and it runs over the earth. And of course, where are your water pipes? It isn't just a down on the farm issue. And so when we found this originally, we said, okay, well, if that's the case, maybe we should make something that removes it. And in science, if you want to show that A causes B, if you can remove A and B goes away and you put A back, B comes back, of course, that's it. And so we made a filter, and we can take the dirty electricity off the wires, but it doesn't take it off the ground. It lessens it, but it still doesn't take it off the ground from other people. And so the problem has gotten worse, because now we all of a sudden have Wi-Fi, deck phones. Before your cordless phone, you could talk in the kitchen, and when you went into the living room, you couldn't talk anymore. But now you can go to the neighbor's house and talk on your cordless phone.
So
because you have so much power.
A deck phone is a cordless phone.
Yes, it's a cordless phone, so digitally enhanced cellular telephone. And what happens is it's the one where you go to Walmart and you buy, for $179, you get a base station and 4 satellite. Yeah. And to just give you an example, okay, the Russians say that 10 microwatts per meter squared may be acceptable. They don't say it's safe. They say it may be acceptable. If you're 10 feet away from a deck phone, it will be 2,000 microwatts per meter squared.
Wow. And I guess before let's go back to the cows and the wife getting the heart palpitations where we started, because now we kind of have an idea.
Right.
And because that's like such an overload, but we'll progress so people will understand what you are talking about.
So the cows, what we did with the cows is we can put 2 plates on a barn floor, and we can measure how many times a cow gets shocked in a day.
And this is from the stray voltage.
Yes. Okay. But it's still high frequency transients. It's on the ground. Okay. We're exposed to it from the wires, and we also stand on the ground. Okay.
Wires like above the house?
The wires in your house, the wires in your building. Okay.
Okay.
If you have a computer like a Dell tower, for example, will put 16.6 kilohertz, 16,600 times per second. Those transients will reverse. Okay. Back on every wire in your whole home. Okay. So throughout your home, so you can have it in the office, and when you sleep at night, if you got the computer on, you're getting exposed to 16.6 kilohertz. Okay.
And you should be how many? Zero.
Yeah. Okay. So what happens with the cows is it was kind of an easy thing to do, because we look at daily milk production. We have one number there, and we can look at how many times a day she got shocked or got a transient, how many transients came in, and we can compare it. And we have a 99.9% correlation. We have over 30,000 cows on film. We have, we've done research for over, 570 days, where we kept track of where the cow was in her lactation period and everything. So it's really accurate, very good, and published in peer-reviewed, scientific journals. And so that's an absolute correlation. So then you go ahead and I was working on that, and then I kind of got done with it, because the electric utilities, who was responsible for the ground current problem, they weren't really going to fix it, and they got a lot more money and time than most of these farmers, things like that. So then I run into a guy who later became my very best friend in the whole world, Professor Martin Graham from UC Berkeley, and he has over 40 patents to his name. He's just an absolute Einstein of the 90s and of this century. So what happened is he said, well, he wanted me to help him with the cows. I said, well, I would soon go to people. And so he said, well, if you help me with the cows, I'll help you with the people. So we finished up with the cows, and we worked with people. See, so then that's where we come up with the filter and some things like that. But yes, and so does it affect human health? Absolutely.
And so what are some of the health issues that people need to look at? How does it affect the health?
Well, back in the 80s, there was a guy named Robert O. Becker, and he was a doctor, and he he was twice nominated for the Nobel Prize. And Dr. Becker said that we are now being exposed to frequencies that we've never been exposed to before. It is a cause of the made-up diseases of the 80s. And he listed fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, ADD, ADHD, things like that, okay? And so at the end of World War II, radar was developed. And so the Russians noticed that, you know, the people working around transmitters and receivers and radar had these symptoms. And so they came and they met in Arizona with some American scientists. And they said, you know, we should put really some stringent limits on what people can be exposed to here, because this causes, you know, this list of problems, you know. And so then what happened is the Americans said, well, look, you're a third world country, you know, go back and, you know, we don't want anything to do with you. So long story short, okay, so the Russians went back and made weapons with this. And they pulsed the U.S. Embassy, and you can look it up, and I think it was called Project Pandora or something like that. You look it up on, sure, they gave the American ambassador leukemia. And sure, and then he came back, and then they sent another one over, and they didn't like him, so he got leukemia within 6 months.
Wow. So this is,
sure.
so cancer, the blood cancers, period, with electrical pulsing
is one of the symptoms. Yes.
Is one of the symptoms.
Yeah. And it's pulsal, and you're right. The pulsing, I'm not so sure a regular carrier wave. The Russians did some research with some rats, and they put rats in a bin, and nothing happened when they were exposed them to a carrier wave. In other words, it's repetitive, the same frequency. So maybe the body kind of adjusts or something to it. I'm not sure. But anyway, nothing happened to the rats. So then what they did is one guy said, well, why don't we modulate the signal? In other words, pulse it. So within 3 minutes, all the rats are dead. They didn't even have time to go ahead and, you know, write their notes on what their symptoms were.
So is this like smart meters? Because smart meters pulse.
Smart meters pulse, yes.
Oh, man.
Smart meters, compact fluorescent light bulbs, you know, the ones that look like a snake.
Yeah.
You know, they're terrible. And not only did they put, like, I tested 76 of them for Trent University in Canada. None of them were any good. They all put between 50 kilohertz and 100 kilohertz back on the wires, somewhere in between.
And
now,
you should have 0.
You don't want to have any. Now, you're going to have 60 cycle on the line because we need the 60 cycle. But I've read thousands of documents, and I don't see anything where it's conclusive that the 60 cycle causes major health issues. But the stuff riding on the 60 hertz causes, everything's conclusive there that I've read. Okay, so these high frequency transients that are put back on the wires. And the bad part about the CFLs, you know, is that if you get close to them, they not only, they radiate through space too. So even if you get close to them, you're going to get, you're going to absorb some, you know, high frequency transients.
What's a CFL?
Compact fluorescent light.
Oh, okay.
You know, the ones that look like a snake, they're very dangerous. That's one of the most dangerous things to come out. And now we come out and they put smart meters on your house. And we have, the problem with the smart meters is it's an electronic circuit again. And we have to change the AC to DC to get this, so the electronics will work, okay? So when we change the AC to DC, we chop up that sine wave, and it puts 50 kilohertz back on all the wires in your house. Now, the Russians, the Russian government, the World Health Organization, the Japanese government say that the most biologically active frequencies are between 4 kilohertz and 100 kilohertz. So between 4 and 100, well, remember that Dell tower that puts on 16.6. Apple.
The computer.
Yeah, Apple, the things that are in your home, like an Apple computer, okay, that's going to put 12.5 kilohertz back on. The CFLs put between 50 and 100 kilohertz back on. So you see, the things that we're buying and selling and using nowadays are very harmful. They're the most biologically active frequency range that, you know, when you, old days, when you went to your grandma's house, remember they had the vacuum tubes?
No.
Well, if you looked in the radio or the TV, tubes.
Yes.
They were vacuum tubes, and you looked in there and you seen a little, all the power did there, the AC power, is it heated a little filament and it boiled some electrons in a tube, and it made the DC current for you. So it was still what we call a linear load.
I mean, you're talking about like when you could actually like take the back off of television and look inside where you can't now.
Yeah, right. Or, you know,
Yeah,
the radio, you could peek inside and see that,
yeah,
you know, your
yeah,
grandma, I mean, it has to be your grandma, you know,
yeah,
but maybe your
yeah,
great grandma, my grandma, but anyway, that's how they had, you know, because electronics been around for a while. But
yeah,
since the 70s, you know, we had to get more energy efficient because there was an
yes,
oil embargo. So we started using current in a short pulses. Okay, like the CFLs. Like if you have a 60-watt incandescent light bulb,
mm-hmm.
n- no problem. But if we want, it gives off so many lumens of light. So we want to get the same amount of light, but we don't want to use as much power. So what we do is we turn the power on and we turn it off, turn it on and turn it off many times, see, in a second. So
Oh,
then what happens is it's more energy efficient. And something your viewers need to know, that it's maybe energy efficient because you will use less energy, but your electric bill probably will not go down because all these little high frequency transients cause your meter to spin faster.
interesting.
Yes, so you
And
don't really save any money.
it's harmful to your health
Very.
because it's pulsing,
Yes.
right? Oh
Yes.
gosh, you know, I when we talked, every time I've listened to you, I don't think I understood the pulsing, but I didn't quite understand that with the CFLs, and I didn't. I that's like, and then when you talked about the Russians pulsing, the people they didn't care for. I mean, and giving them leukemia within 6 months, and that's just, that's like off the chart scary, you know, what we're doing to our bodies.
Absolutely. And
So
you need to be aware of it. And then the bad part about it is you don't taste it, you can't smell it, you know, things like that. And you got to
yeah.
have some special equipment to even measure it.
And so before we get into the special equipment to measure it, which you do have, right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I mean, no, not, I mean that you are able to sell or,
Well, okay, we originally, okay, we used an oscilloscope and
uh-huh,
you can actually see the wave, but that's $5,000 for an oscilloscope.
right.
And the average person doesn't have $5,000. So when we found this, I made a trip to Russia because we can make, we were saying, okay, if you want to show the A causes B thing, we need
Mm-hmm.
to know what we really need to, what is A? We want to know what we should remove in that. And so I made a trip, well, several trips to Russia, Ukraine. There's several schools there. In Kiev, there's one school of thought. In Moscow had another school of thought where they did a lot of research on this. So I went and I talked to some professors in Kiev, and I talked to some in Moscow and Almaty, Kazakhstan. These are very, and we got to be good friends. At first, they didn't like me too much because, like, what are you doing here? They don't trust you. But
Yeah.
they have electronic equipment too,
Yeah.
and so when I showed them on an oscilloscope what they are exposed to, the same as us, it's like, oh my gosh, we got
Yeah.
to do
All of a
something to
sudden it
help
became
us.
personal and you were
Yeah,
a
and it was,
friend.
exactly. And Dr. Yuri Gregoriev, who's the grandfather of electromagnetic radiation,
Mm-hmm.
and Professor Nicotina Valentina, who's they call the grandmother of electromagnetic radiation. I mean, they're good personal friends of mine, and I mean, we did get to be good friends. And there's no Russian collusion here, so we can take that off the
I'm
table.
so glad. Yes, I'm so glad you
But I know them, okay?
made that clear.
Yeah, right. I thought we'd cover that base right away, so I don't have somebody knocking on my door tomorrow. So, so we showed them what was there, and they said, "Well, we can't have this. They already had standards in place,
Mm-hmm.
and you can't be exposed to more than 2 kilohertz, really, you know, because that's where the energy starts to go internal to the human body when you get above 2 kilohertz." So they said, "Well, we can't afford to buy an oscilloscope for all our sanitary stations, plus train somebody how to use it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, can you make us a meter that will measure the energy that's on that, not the 50 cycle, they're 50 and we're 60, but can you make us a meter that will measure just the high frequency energy that's there?"
Mm-hmm.
And well, that's a little beyond my scope a little bit here, but I know a guy who probably can. So my best friend Martin, you know, to the rescue, right?
Who you volunteered?
Yes. Yeah. He was retired at the time, so he had a reason to get up in the morning.
Yeah,
But,
exactly.
yeah, I
Here's your
ruined
new
his retirement.
project.
I ruined his retirement. He was going to go ahead and travel with his wife, and I think one time his wife made a comment because they were traveling in France, and his wife said, "Come on, Marty, we got to go to the Louvre." And he said, "Well, go ahead, sell without me." He said, "I got to call Dave." So his wife said,
Oh.
"Well, the next time you go on vacation, you take Dave with you." She said, kind of ruined it. So I apologized one time to him. I said, "I'm sorry I ruined your vacation." And I said, "But your retirement." And he said, "Well, it kept me alive."
Yeah, but
He
now he has a measurement
Yeah.
named
So he
after.
makes this meter, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And so we went through many processes, but nothing really lined up with anything until we come out with it's a mathematical formula. But anyway, we calculate the energy that's on the wire, okay?
Mm-hmm.
There's dV over difference in voltage over difference in time. So we have all these high frequency transients, and we count how many times it changed voltages in a given time,
Mm-hmm.
then we give it a number. And so Maxwell Planck, who was a German physicist, said energy is proportionate to frequency. So the higher the frequency, the more energy is there. Okay, but we need to look at the amplitude. We need to look at the energy. Now we're going to make everybody into engineers. So anyway, what happens is we come up with this meter, and you can kind of see it here.
Mm-hmm.
It's really simple to use.
Mm-hmm.
There's not even an on and off switch. You just plug it in. It gives you a number.
Wow, very simple.
Yes. And so then we went to like what we would call our Bureau of Standards. And the Russians said, okay, we know that energy, and we already have standards that say you can't be above 2 kilohertz. Okay, we want to, that's where it really goes into the human body internally.
Mm-hmm.
So 50 on our meter isn't always, but usually it's pretty close to 2 kilohertz. Okay, so you want to have the number below 50. So they have a decree that says, okay, if that number is above 50, you have to take immediate steps to reduce it in a public building. So the number is, it means something, it does something. People have from scientists from around the world have done research on it. They've done research with like blood sugar.
Yeah.
The lower that number is on that meter, the lower your blood sugar is.
And also the live blood cell, right? Like
Yep.
looking at the same thing to see the cells like clumping together, and
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And
yes.
whether they're flowing freely through the artery. I mean, you know what I mean?
That's exactly true. Yeah. And if you expose people to high frequency, we bring that number up, that your blood cells will clump together. Yes.
Yeah. And then they go down, they separate so that they can flow freely through the body when the numbers go down.
That's correct. Yes. Neurotransmitters. Mm-hmm. It's your immune system. Mm-hmm. And what happens if you get a cancer cell in your ovary, for example, this is oversimplification, okay, but mm-hmm. There's a signal that goes up to your brain, says, hey, there's something here that doesn't belong, and your brain sends the signal back down, says, okay, you're right, and you know, but all this information is being transferred on your neurotransmitters, okay? So we know that the lower that number is, the more neurotransmitters you have in your body, less are coming out through your urine, you know, like your kidneys. So we checked 12 people. When I say we, I mean it. I had very little to do with it.
Right.
Professor Sam Millam, who was a professor of medicine out in Washington, world famous epidemiologist, took 12 subjects at the Olympia Washington Library, checked their urine for 12 weeks. Nobody had less than 300 neurotransmitters in their urine. You don't want to have any because you don't want it leaving your body. I flew to Washington just to supervise putting these filters in or cleaning up their electrical environment, okay? Mm-hmm. And we got the number below 35 on the meter. And so within 8 hours, people collected their urine. And for the next 12 weeks, nobody had more than 3 neurotransmitters in their urine.
Wow. That's fascinating.
Also,
so
they've done research at schools.
You need your neurotransmitters to stay in your body, and they have been, because of the high frequency, they've been coming out in the urine, so you're losing your neurotransmitters, so there's no communication in your body.
Your immune system, yeah, for your immune system. Yep.
Wow.
That's exactly right.
Fascinating. Okay.
Okay, then they also did research at schools, and they take this meter here, and if the number's above 2,000, and you work in that environment for more than 6 hours a day for 180 days a year, you've increased your chances of getting cancer by 25%. If the number's above 1,000, you've increased your chances of getting cancer by 15%. So there's numbers these numbers mean something, okay?
Yeah.
Now there's been people trying to make knockoffs in that, but it's not our meter, it's not our number, it's not measuring the real thing. Research has been done on our filters from around the world. And,
Mhm.
you know, I'm not just saying, I'm not here to sell a product that, you know, don't get me wrong. Okay. We didn't do it for that because both Graham and I were experts in our field, and we
Mhm.
never wanted to have a product to sell because we thought it took away from our credibility as experts.
Right.
But
Right.
nobody else would do it. We went to manufacturers, said, "Hey, look, why don't you put a tune filter in that computer?" Well, it add $5 to the cost of the computer. Get out of here. So eventually, we just like tired of seeing people suffer.
Yeah. Yeah. So you had to do it yourself.
And we actually in the beginning we gave them away. You
Did
know,
you really?
yeah, we made some, just cobbled something together and said, "Hey,
Yeah.
we'll try this," and it worked.
Yeah.
But we
And
were enjoying 100% success. But
mhm.
remember, that was back in 98, 2000, right, you know, in that area. And the cell towers weren't at the end of every
Yeah.
block, and
Yeah.
Wi-Fi was non-existent.
And so what is on the end of every block is a fertility clinic. And so, I mean, this has to do with have you seen any studies that have to do with fertility and lack or loss of
Absolutely.
fertility?
Especially,
And
yes, especially, we noticed that right away, especially with cows.
hmm
That's how we first, you know, noticed it, because the cows wouldn't get pregnant. They
hmm
wouldn't, if they got pregnant, they would abort or absorb, and they wouldn't come into heat when they should.
hmm
And so now, of course, people who, uh, you know, like before when I was growing up, I mean, gee, probably 25% of my class had to get married. You know, in those days,
yeah,
get
right,
married,
because
right?
there was
You know, the
pregnant.
rabbit died, we used to say, okay,
Yeah.
the old people. But anyway, now people can't get pregnant. A lot of
Hmm.
miscarriages. You know, they go to fertility clinics. You know, but like I know when you clean up the electrical environment, my neighbor was a good example. They were 40 years old, into the muscle cars, never had any kids or anything. And when I
Hmm.
built a new house in '98, I couldn't hardly live there. It was so bad because the town was 7 miles away from a substation and a lot of dirty power and stuff. So I put filters in my house, but I couldn't get the levels where I wanted. So I went next door and I asked the neighbors, "Can I put these in your house?" Yeah, sure. They didn't care. Well, she got sick not too long after that,
Uh-huh.
and she was pregnant. So at 40 years old, you know, or 40s, right? It was like
Yeah.
surprise, surprise. But it's happened more than once,
Yeah.
a lot more than once. I mean, people
So
say they can't have kids. I mean, even my own nephew, his wife, they weren't supposed to have any kids, and we
this,
give them a box of filters for, you know, clean up their environment, really.
and so you're studying your study with the cows. I mean, obviously it's the same as, I mean, people and animals, same thing for the most part. And I mean, for the all of it, and these frequencies. And so on cell phones, you see these women putting it in their bras, their phones in their bras, the guys in their front pockets, they're in their back, with the girls in their back pockets. I mean, everywhere you go, like they're carrying their phones. What is that doing to what is that doing to people?
Well, I have to refer to the research, but it's absolutely, you know, causing cellular damage, things like that, according to that I've read.
Hmm.
Uh, the cell phones, you know, are you going to get cancer? Yes, it's going to take you 8, 9, 10 years or something like that. But you know, for these young girls and they're carrying in their back pocket and stuff, it's got to be affecting their reproductive, you know,
Hmm.
and guys too. You put them in
Hmm.
your
Yeah.
pocket. I
Hmm.
mean, the sperm count in this country is way down compared to what it used
Yes.
to be.
Yeah, I was a researcher I was listening to, and she said that they had to like downgrade that what was normal so that men would think that they were normal for their sperm counts because no motility and very weak and so they get like out of 10 guys they get maybe 3 and it's always a like a push so like you're getting just we're just becoming weaker and weaker as people with all of these frequencies and it's also um, is it also radiation is it I mean how do cell phones how do cell phones work like what is it that happens it's the frequent is it frequency is it pulsing is it what's happening when there's a cell phone in the towers can you explain that
Well, we have these short waves, and it's the problem is a lot of it's our government, okay? But I mean, what they did for the set these safe standards, okay? We should cover that. Uh,
okay
in the United States, what they did is they said, okay, look, what's a safe level, okay? And so what they did is the criteria they used is when your cells started to heat. Okay, so the exposure to these frequencies, we turn up the dial until the cell starts to heat. Okay, so then they stop and they say, okay, this is going to be the level. But you could be vomiting, eyes exploding, you know, all kinds of problems happening here. But it doesn't count because it has to be up here. So that's what happened. And so then, you know, of course, the bad part is, you know, the cell phone industry, okay, they have a lot of lobbying power, a lot of money, and so that's what happens. So there's all kinds of damage being done with these, not just cell phones, and we live in the 21st century, okay? And none of your listeners are going to give up their cell phone.
Right.
And I have one somewhere too, and I use it. I travel, you got to have it, right? So then the question is, what can I do to still have that cell phone and use it safer, okay? And so there's some products you can buy, and I've seen them, and a lot of stuff is junk, okay? But there's like little bags you can put your cell phone in where, you know, it receives a call, you know, from one side, and then if you hold it next to your body, it'll shield it a little better that way. Women, they carry their cell phone in their purse, but you know, if you're using it in the office, don't use it full time, you know, as your only means of communication. If you can get the landlines, fine, that would be better. But if you're going to use a cell phone, lay it in the windowsill or something, you know, even in the office. Don't lay it by your desk. You can get up and walk around to catch the call. Use the speaker if you can. If you're not holding it next to your head. See? Things like that. Distance is a big thing, okay?
So brain tumors and brain cancer, where they find it is right where the phone is in the head. When they go in, they find these the tumors are right where the phone is in the
right,
head.
yeah.
So
there's no question that it causes. Mayo Clinic, okay, did some research. This is years ago, okay? And Mayo Clinic did some research, and they were going to do a 10-year study or something like that on cell phones, okay? So at the end of 10 years, because it wasn't the wireless industry paying for it, it was going to be totally independent, okay? And of course, Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota is one of the most world-renowned places in the, you know, on the planet. So they did this study, but they didn't make it public. And so people were, hey, this thing's supposed to be out. So a couple of years go by and they kind of, hey, what's going on? And they said, look, we're a private enterprise. We don't have to make this public. But what they did, though, is they went around and bought up all kinds of little clinics and hospitals and made them into big surgical centers, you know, so that we can do these brain surgeries and stuff like that. So, you know, you can draw your own conclusions, but those are the facts.
I see. Oh, I see. Okay, so they would go and they do their surgeries, but they'd never release that there was a brain tumor right where you held the phone.
Well, now, you know, most of the people go into that clinic to get the brain surgery. I mean, now they can buy it, right? Because they're going to take care of the problem.
Yeah, go to the Mayo Clinic if you have cancer. Yeah, it's the last place I'd go. Anyway, so okay, so some of the solutions that are, and I want to talk a little bit more like the car, like your car, like tell us your story about your car and with OnStar and like explain what we have going there.
Well, okay, I had to, obviously things wear out, so I had bought a new truck. But I kind of had an idea about some of it. But in my own personal case, I bought a new truck, and you get the OnStar, you get all these things, you get Wi-Fi, all this stuff.
Crap.
Okay? Crap. Yeah, I was gonna say it. Thanks. Okay. So anyway, I come home at night, and it's only about a 15-minute drive. If it's that long from where I work to where I live, and I come home, and I would be kind of phlegmy, you know, clearing my throat all the time, and a minor headache. But usually you should get, if you're coming down with a cold or something, you should get more phlegmy at night. Well, by 8 o'clock, it would be cleared up. And so, okay, the next morning you get up and you're clear as a bell. I get in the vehicle, I drive to work, I'm until 10 o'clock, right? So about after the third day or fourth day, you know, and I'm in the business, I should know more, but maybe it had a mental effect, right? So I need a meter, and I went out, took a meter out there, and that thing is just blasting off. Okay. And so it's like, what the heck's going on here? And so then I had a hard time. So I took out the dash and unhooked the Wi-Fi, and then my truck wouldn't start. So I'd hook it all back up. I get the truck started, unhook it, and then all the gauges went to zero. So what happened is then I had to, and of course, OnStar, they won't, it doesn't hurt you anyway. It does too. Okay.
That's what OnStar says. It doesn't hurt you.
Yeah. Well, what's
Yeah.
the matter? It doesn't hurt you anyway.
Yeah.
But you got to go to them to get it turned off, I thought.
Yeah.
And so the dealer couldn't help me. So what I did is, if you go online, and we found it, and if somebody has a question, they can call here and talk to Adam. He's more the techie guy. But anyway, you can we had a smartphone. We downloaded this app, and then we had to drive over because I think they use AT&T, and we don't have very good AT&T here. So we went over there, and by the interstate, sitting in the thing, and we got it disconnected, and it's fine now. But then I was talking to Professor Sam Millam out in Washington, and he's a world famous epidemiologist, and he said that people are getting strokes, and they're having it on the right side of their head, and it's because that Wi-Fi transmitter in the car is right here, right above your head, right here in the middle.
Wow. And so is that Bluetooth, or is that
No,
just Wi-Fi?
not the Bluetooth.
Wi-Fi?
Wi-Fi, yeah. So, you know, years ago when we were kids, I mean, we went down the road and we looked out the window and had conversations or whatever when we're driving in the car.
Right.
Now the kids got to have an iPad, you know, like a babysitter, and they got a phone in play, and so they got to have the Wi-Fi connection, and you're in a metal vehicle, and that stuff's bouncing off all around you, so you're getting it from every side. It's really quite dangerous.
So you can't see it, you can't feel it. Is this something that your Stetzer meter will measure? Like people
Not what's coming through space. Our meter only measures what's on the wire.
Oh, what's on the wire. Okay.
What's
so
on
you
the
can't,
wire.
So unless you have that, is it, would you call it an oscillator or oscillator meter? Or
well
you could measure it?
The oscilloscope, yeah, you
Oscilloscope.
can pick it up with a wave coming through space with an oscilloscope, but that's too much money.
Yeah,
but they do make a meter that I like. It's a gigahertz solutions. It's called the HF35C. It's real simple to use, but the bad part is, again, I mean, there's cheaper ones, but it just tells you something's there. But if you get this HF35C, and you can look it up on the internet or something, or we don't sell them, but they're about $300. You shouldn't pay too much more than that for them, but it's still a lot of money. But it has a directional antenna, and you can swing it around, and you get the meter, and you get an audio sound, and it tells you how much, you know, energy is there. One of the real bad things what's coming through space is Xboxes. The Xbox, when you turn them off, they're not off. You have to unplug them.
Wow.
And they're so bad. I can be on the third floor of a building, and the Xbox can be down in the basement, and I'll pick those readings up way over what you should be allowed to have.
Oh my gosh. And so is an Xbox, is that something that your filter would help, or are we talking about that's coming?
My filter takes off the high frequencies that are on the building's wires, the most biologically active frequencies.
Okay. I know it's kind of hard to keep up with all of this. It's like having to be an engineer. So I'm trying to, for my listeners.
So there's three problems we got to worry about. Okay. One is what's coming through space.
And Xbox is coming through space.
Xbox is coming through space.
Is that Wi-Fi?
Like the Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi, DECT phones, cordless phones, your smart meter, you know, is coming through space when it transmits that thing. The cell towers, things like that. That's what's coming through the air, through space. You got to worry about that. Okay, so that's the doom and gloom. But now we can talk about, okay, but there's an engineering solution to an engineering problem, in my opinion. Okay. Okay. So we have this coming through space. Cable it. Cat 5 cable is cheap. Okay. So the computer that I'm talking on now, we have high-speed internet, but we have it a DSL connection. We have it cabled. We have 20-some computers in this building, and we have them all on cabled. It's not a big deal. It's cheap wire. It's inexpensive. The ends are cheap. Okay, so then we don't have this broadcasting through space for
As
that.
opposed to Wi-Fi, having your computer
Yeah,
on
I don't have the
Wi-Fi with a
Wi-Fi.
router.
Yeah, I'm not
And
really suffering any, okay,
okay.
without it. Like I said, I don't know where my cell phone is. It might be out in the truck or something.
Yeah,
like
but
that.
we have a clear connection on this video, and it's not Wi-Fi.
Right,
It's
exactly. Yeah, and it's
DSL.
faster anyway.
Yeah.
So, but that's the one thing coming through space. You got that to worry about.
Okay.
Then you have to worry about what's on the wires, the dirty electricity, because that stuff couples into your body capacitively, and it's around you, it's above your head, below your feet, it's everywhere. You can't get away from that. Even if you don't have any electronic equipment, you still have the grid. Light dimmer switches, compact fluorescent lights, things that are in your control. I mean, you can change your dimmer switch, you can do things like that, but we can clean that up with a filter what's left, okay? The third thing is then the ground current. It's something that wouldn't be affect people as so much in the homes and that, but there's still ground current everywhere. And people in rural areas are worse. And the other thing is people are selling these grounding mats and earthing, things like that. Worst thing you can do, because in North America, okay?
Right.
In North America, we use what we call a grounded Y system. That power that goes back to the substation has two paths. One is on the primary neutral, which it's supposed to be on. The other is the earth now, okay?
That's the straight.
So, yes. And
Okay.
so what happened in 1998, there was two separate studies, one done by EPRI, Electrical Power Research Institute in Palo Alto, California, and the other one done by the Minnesota Science Advisors. 70% of all the current in 1998 was returning to the substation via the earth. Well, where are your water pipes connected? Your gas pipe that comes in and touches your furnace, all these things. So we're sucking this in. Nowhere in North America have I ever been anywhere. I'm not saying there isn't a place, but any place I've been that I haven't been able to see a distorted 60-cycle sine wave in people's front yards, anywhere, okay? So we got to worry about that too.
So if somebody buys an earthing mat, which I did, and after listening to you a few years ago, we just tossed them, and plugs them in, you become a conductor of all of that stray electricity. Is that how it works?
Exactly. And here's the bad part. If you made the human body into an electrical model, it would look like 3 resistors and 2 capacitors. Now, the bad thing about the capacitor part, it's a short to high frequency. And so when you plug that earthing mat into that ground plug, basically where the ground plug goes, if you followed the wire, it would go back to your panel. From your panel, it would go out to the transformer. From there, it's connected directly to the primary neutral wire. Okay, that with everybody else's crap on the line too. Okay,
Right.
So now it's high frequency stuff, and so a capacitor is a short to high frequency. So here you are, you plug this into the ground wire, right? And you lay on this mat, and you're a capacitor there. What you did is you just sucked it over into your body, and I have the measurements.
And this is where everybody on YouTube and all these, they show these YouTubes where they show a voltage or millivolter meter or something, and it literally goes down when you lay on it, which is
but here's the thing. It goes down for 2 reasons, or for the main reason. The people that are showing these don't know what they're doing. And I don't mind saying it because it's a fact. I'm a senior member in the IEEE, and you won't find any other IEEE members disagreeing with me on this. There's current, there's voltage, and there's resistance or impedance, okay? Voltage is the pressure. So if I told you to go and put a pressure gauge, make a little T off your kitchen sink faucet, and you put a pressure gauge there, you might be reading 60 pounds per square inch of pressure, okay? But when we turn the faucet on, what happens? The pressure gauge goes down.
Right.
So these body voltage meters is a scam thing. And so you put the body voltage on there, you're measuring pressure. But when you lay on the mat, you've increased the current flow. It's like turning the faucet on. So the pressure goes down, but the amount of electrons going through your body has increased dramatically. Exactly. It's just the laws of physics. E is equal to IR. V is equal to IR now, I guess.
That's okay. I wouldn't know
the
difference,
but I get. But I get, been around for a long time.
But I get it. I understood it when I heard you a couple of years ago, and that mat was out. Now
you should notice that, remember I said the human body's like a capacitor. So
Okay.
these women, it used to be more women, but now we're equal, okay?
Okay.
As far as using computers, things like that. But years
Our
ago,
bodies.
more women using computers on the keyboard, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So the human body is, remember, like these 3 resistors and capacitors. Capacitors actually hold a charge. And so if you work on a computer all day, or you're sitting underneath fluorescent lights and things, you will actually build up a charge in your body.
Mm-hmm.
So if you lay on a conductive surface, right, you will discharge. It's like putting the 2 leads of a capacitor together, and it's your discharge.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so is it good to discharge? The answer is yes. So people say, well, yeah, I bought this grounding mat and I feel great. And the research says, but a lot of the research was done in Europe. And in Europe, the earth is not used as a conductor.
Right.
In
Nothing
North
coming back.
America, right, in North America, we use the earth as like a wire. And so we connect ourselves to that wire. But if you laid on the mat and you didn't plug it in, you would feel better. You would discharge.
Right.
But you can pay $150 for this mat, or you can go to your kitchen cupboard and get a piece of aluminum foil. Yeah, right. Oh, yeah.
It's the
And you
only
can
thing.
stand on that.
It's the only thing I'd ever use it for.
Shiny side up, shiny side down, doesn't make any difference. Just stand on that. And especially like before you go to bed at night, because then until you charge up again, okay, you're not going to charge up or work on a keyboard in your bed. So
Right.
just stand on the aluminum foil and for a minute, hop in the bed, then you're not going to charge up. At least you got 8 hours or so of not being charged.
Yeah. So just a piece of aluminum foil, and rather than, because the earthing mat, you could just lay on it and you're just charging on that. But why, like you say, why pay $150 for that when you could just stand on a piece of aluminum foil and discharge?
Sure. And if you laid on the earthing mat and you got one and you paid the $150 for it or whatever they cost, okay.
Earthing sheets. Yeah.
Yeah. Just don't plug it into the wall anymore. You still discharge, but just don't plug it in. Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I just got rid of mine because it's like, I'll just use the foil. So you were going to talk about the women and men in the call centers, and just the breast cancer, the amount of breast cancer, because is that the fluorescent lights? Is that the computers? Is that just what you were talking about, that there's a charge, a constant charge, and we're constantly in the call centers?
Well, you're working on the keyboards, and current doesn't like to flow across your muscles, okay?
This
It
is
likes
what
to flow along your muscles, okay?
Okay.
So now you're sitting in the keyboard and you got your hands there, right? So the current will flow up your arms, okay? And then when it gets to your chest, what happens? The muscles don't just continue on, they're going across your chest and everything. And the breasts are here, and we have this very sensitive tissue, right? And so now you have current there, all right? You actually have current. We can measure this. Okay, so now it flows, and you get this current flow, and it damages them, or you damage a cell. What happens when you get a damaged cell? It reproduces a cell. So then you got 2, and 4, 8, 16, 32, 6, 4 on, right? So then, right? And if your immune system isn't working right, because these signals are getting interrupted, right? So then it gets away from it. Now, years ago, you never heard of men hardly ever getting breast cancer. I mean, but men weren't really working on a computer. It was the women who had the office jobs, and I don't want to get the Me Too thing letters either now.
Yeah, no.
but it was really it was the women who worked on the computers, right?
Yeah, that's just
now call centers are the worst place to work, because they were the worst occupation for getting breast cancer. Okay, is working in call centers. But now men have the equal opportunity or chance to get, when they work in call centers. There's all kinds of men getting breast cancer, but they're on that keyboard.
Yeah, they're on the keyboard, and so it's the charge. They're being charged, correct? And then
absolutely.
And then also, you had talked about like literally, you don't want to have your computer plugged in and charging while you're working on it, correct? You want it to be working on battery.
If you use a laptop computer, okay, and I mean, I go by my meters. My meters don't have an opinion. It's ones and zeros, binary, okay?
Right.
So we measure it, okay? But if you are working on a laptop, for example, we got to change the AC to DC. But if you unplug it, the DC, the electrons that are in that computer to work it goes from the negative charge they got it of the battery back to the positive charge. And of course, it goes through all this circuits to run your computer and do all this stuff. You're not really in the circuit. You're not a path for them. Okay. So would I say, hey, can I use my laptop computer and can I use it safely? I would say, yeah, I think so. My measurements say you can. And I got plenty here, and I just, and what I do is I have an Apple is one of them, and they got that, just that little magnetic strip, you know, and I'm charging it all the time. When I need to work on it, I just unplug it right there and I work on it. And my wife does the same thing on her computer. And then when we go up or done or go to the restroom or something like that, we can just click it back on and you go back to charging it again. You know, I don't have to go to the outlet and unplug it. But yeah, so you do this stuff and can use it safely, pretty much. So yeah.
And you don't want to put your feet on the aluminum foil. I just want to make this clear from what I learned from you. You definitely don't want to, when it's charging, when you're and you're working on your computer, you don't want to have you can't discharge. So you don't want to put the foil under your feet when you're doing that.
You don't. Really, you don't. No, that's absolutely.
And
you just attract that stuff.
Yeah, so that just makes it worse. Let me just look over the last. Let me see if I have anything else. God, there's so many more questions. We kind of came to it.
Adam and I were talking earlier, and we said, well, you know what we could do here is we could do this again sometime, and we'll set up not right here, but I'll set up in my lab, and I can sit there and we can show you on a meter what a light dimmer switch does, what a compact fluorescent light does, what what this stuff does, and then we can show you how to, like the filter, we can show you how it just, takes it away instantly, and we can show you on the numbers. We got some listening devices that we can actually hear the current go through your body. Then you go stand by somebody who varies a dimmer switch. We can also measure the current in your body. We can turn on some fluorescent lights. We can lift your hand up. You'll see the number go up and down. We can actually do this so you can actually see with regular, normal household items that you have.
Wow, that would really help the viewers, and the listeners aren't going to be able to. We'll do that totally on YouTube so that people can see this, and on my website so that people can see all of this, because I personally would love to see that. Like I would fly out there. Yeah, exactly. I love that. Let me just see if there's you have the filters, and so we talked about that it's about $650 or $675 for like 20 filters and the meter or something like that.
Yes. The average home has 2 TVs and 1 computer. So, and this was years ago, so now maybe it's above average or something. But
like
you can buy this kit and you can get this the filters for I'm not the money guy here, but I think it's like $650 or something like that. You get the filter and the meter. You get 20 filters. But if you put 20 filters in your house, if you needed 22, you're still going to get the benefit.
Yeah,
if you need
and you
20,
might need less.
Yeah. And so the filters are just a simple thing. You can see it like here, and they just plug in, to the outlet, and you plug the meter in because you don't know where they go. You need to, every time you plug one in somewhere, that goes down everywhere, the numbers. So do your electronics first, because you need the electronics, and it comes with instructions, and you can always call and somebody will walk you through it. Then after that, you just plug the meter in to the top half of the receptacle, for example. You get a number. If you plug the filter in and the number goes down significantly, you need one there. If it doesn't go down significant, don't worry. Just go to the next outlet. Okay? And you work your way through the house. You don't need one in every receptacle. You need to check every receptacle. And the numbers get below 35. There's numbers that are plotted against that number. The neurotransmitters, of course, you're not going to go get a urine sample and send it to a lab and before and after. But you can do things like blood sugar. If anybody in the family is diabetic, 20 minutes to an hour, the blood sugar changes. You take those litmus strips and you check them, and you're more alkaline within 2 hours.
Wow.
So these are simple things that you can do, and I think you can get a package of them for pretty cheap. I don't know.
I get them all the time. They're like $8
for a bunch.
For a bunch, yeah.
Yeah, right. So I mean, these are simple things that you can prove to yourself they're working or not. The breathing will feel better because, and for example, we put these in a school, and 37 kids had asthma. Nobody used inhaler after that. So some of the moms called the school and said, well, look, how come my kid isn't, called the school nurse. They said, well, look, my kid isn't bringing these inhalers home, these puffer or whatever, because, we need to get it refilled and stuff, and you're not sending it home. Well, the nurse said, well, they haven't been in to get a puff off their inhaler.
They
And
don't
so
need
then
it.
they got upset, a little upset. So then she had to did some research on it, and she noticed that nobody came in after we put the filters in. And there was 3 buildings, so we didn't get them all put in the same day. So it was the day in those school buildings that the filters were in. So then, of course, to say, well, look, if that's the case, we put them in our house, they shouldn't have the asthma. They shouldn't, and of course, that's true. And so when they did, that's what happened. So 37 kids have asthma, don't have it. Well, I don't think there's a cure for asthma, but I think what I do know is, after talking to these medical doctors or professors of medicine, they say that your body produces histamine when you're, like, if somebody brings a cat in the room and you're allergic to cats, you get histamine. So you might start wheezing, somebody else gets a rash, whatever.
Right.
But so instead of giving you some antihistamine, why don't we just get the cat out of the room, right?
Exactly. And this is what it does.
Yeah, exactly. So what happens when you're exposed to these fields, your body is allergic to these fields, okay? It has an allergic reaction. Your body produces histamine, okay? So then if we use an antihistamine, you feel a little better. But when you put these filters in the room, okay, or clean up your environment, it feels like the air is fresher. We didn't change the air, but your body stopped producing histamine.
Right.
Because it's not reacting to these fields.
And taking these antihistamines, I mean, you have histamines for a reason in your body. So, so to remove the aggravator is like the best thing to do, like removing the cat. What a great way of putting it. That's amazing. This has been even after our conversation, I keep learning from you. I mean, every single time I listen to your interviews and talk to you earlier this week and then now today, I mean, it's just like, this is such an important thing for everybody to start paying attention to not be carrying their cell phones in their pockets or in their bras, putting it next to their ear, like to put it on speaker, as you said, or, keep it away, put it on the windowsill or whatever you said, because literally then you're moving your body. So you're getting a little exercise instead of just sitting there. And then putting these filters on, which I'm definitely going to be getting. I don't know why I haven't done, well, I do know why I haven't. I'm like everybody else. It's like you get busy and you forget and you can't, and the worst part is you can't see it. So until you actually understand the danger that we're putting in our body. And I think that the biggest thing that really hit me today that I've never heard you talk about is pulsing the ambassador to Russia and getting leukemia. And because so many people have smart meters, and I know you have a material that will deflect that, but yet if your neighbor has a smart meter, then you're still, you know what I mean? So it's like just being aware and understanding, and it's not about being afraid, it's about being understanding and being aware and knowing what you can do about it. So it's good to present solutions, which you do, and so I'm super grateful for that.
And they're legitimate solutions, and it's an engineering solution to an engineering problem.
Yes.
People sell these little, and it upsets me because they sell these little buttons or something you put on your cell phone, and it changes the wave, and it makes the bad waves into good waves, and that.
Harmonizers.
This stuff is junk. It's junk. And it's junk science. There's no published peer-reviewed papers on this stuff. And show me on a meter. I always tell people, I'll be your best disciple, but you need to show me your nail holes. Okay? I'm the doubting Thomas, doubting Dave, right? But you show me on a meter where something changes. And what bothers me about this and these people, okay, more so than, it's a kind of a pet peeve, because moms, I don't know any moms who aren't like a bear cub or like
Mama
they take care of
bear.
their cubs. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Right. And they want to take care of your kids. So you would never, ever do anything to harm your kids.
Right.
Always err on caution. So what happens is somebody comes along and says, look, you can have your kid have a cell phone. And if you put this little button on here, it's safe. So, okay, so the mom believes the guy, puts it on the cell phone, and thinks, well, yeah, the kid's okay if little Johnny's using that cell phone more because he's safe. He's not safe. and
Yeah.
it's really upsets me. And and of course, show me on a meter. And then you got to think about just use an ounce of common sense. If you call me on your cell phone,
Mm-hmm.
who's going to get the bill? You. There's a wave that's going out. So we know it's your phone. So you get the bill, all kinds of information going on this wave. So if you
Mm-hmm.
change that wave in any shape or form, it can't communicate anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So
Right,
how, if
right.
this thing changed it, how can you still make the call?
And so what the way you explained it to me, which was very easy for me to grasp the concept, was, does it have a power source? Does it have, so that little thing, does it have a battery? Does it have, otherwise it's not doing anything. It's
That's
not,
right.
because what they say, and what I had asked you about, is one in particular that is supposed to, you put it on your router and it's supposed to make the wave just okay for your body. It harmonizes. It doesn't hurt you. It just basically goes through your body without hurting you. And and so and so you laughed at that, and and so, you know, I don't have a meter, so I'm gonna go off the science with this one. I mean, I'm not always a scientific believer, because I believe in God and universe and magic and those kinds of things, and but that one is a very real thing, because you can't see it, so there needs to be some way to measure it. And as you said, if you can't measure it, I mean, show me. Show me.
Exactly. Yeah,
And,
I believe in God. I'm a Christian. My
yeah,
grandmother gave me a St. Christopher medal when like I said, when I was 12 years old. I
right,
mean, uh, it reminds me that I'm not alone in life, things
right.
like that. But if you and I went out and stood in front of a Greyhound bus, like I told you,
Mm-hmm.
and it drives over us, we're both going to be at the pearly gates at the same time. Hopefully I'll get to the pearly gates, but I might get an elevator ride down, but nonetheless, but it doesn't have any, it isn't going to, the bus gets so far and it stops because there's some field, or something like that coming out of this metal. So, things like necklaces, bracelets, watches, things like that. It's
Mm-hmm.
junk science. They make claims.
Mm-hmm.
I think I told you before, I was at a big convention one time and there was several
With
speakers.
Dr. Klinghardt, right? Just
Yeah,
recently
Klinghardt I was just at.
in New Jersey. Mm-hmm.
I was at another, I think it was in Bermuda or
Some fancy place.
Barbados or something. Anyway, it doesn't matter. There was like 1,500 people in the audience, and
Yeah.
there was different presenters. And afterwards, we were sitting at a table for questions. And one guy had one of the little buttons and things. And of course, they asked the question. I says junk, and the guy says, "Well, that's not true." Blah blah blah. And I said, "Show me where the power supply is. How can it do any work? If you don't have a power supply, it can't do those things. If your battery runs dead in your cell phone, how do you make a call? You don't. You
Yeah.
can't. How do you start your car unless you have a battery? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Once the engine runs, you can't drive down the road unless the motor's turning, right?
Yeah.
So it has to have a power source. Nobody's conquered perpetual motion yet. So, okay. So we got an argument, and then, so the guy said, "Well, I'm going to sue you." Well, first of all, he said it was quantum physics, and you wouldn't understand that. Well, that's probably true. Okay.
That you wouldn't understand.
Yeah, that I wouldn't understand quantum physics. So I said, "Why don't you
Mhm.
explain it anyway?" And out of 1,500 people in the audience, somebody might understand it. Well, of course, he couldn't explain it because it's junk. So he said they were going to sue me. So I gave him my business card so they got the spelling right in the summons. And of course, they didn't sue me. Because it's junk.
Because it's a fact, because what you have is science on your side and
Yeah.
facts, and it's measurable.
It's
And
measurable. Yeah,
yeah,
it is
and
absolutely
they're
measurable.
unable to.
I mean,
Yeah.
like you said, I believe in God. I mean, I don't know how you
Yeah.
measure that, but I do,
I
and
don't
I'm
think
not.
you need to measure
Yeah,
that, but
that one I'm not going to do.
yeah.
But this stuff here is all measurable. The laws of physics can't be changed.
So Dave, how can people get a hold of you? I mean, what's the best way to get a hold of you if people have questions?
Well, it's real easy to call, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I may be tied up or not here or something, but uh, I absolutely return all my phone calls, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So you're not going to be talking to a machine. You're going to be talking to a real person. We
Mm-hmm.
have qualified people here to answer your questions. And if you need to talk to me, you can call me at the office, or you can send me an email, and I'll get back to you that way or whatever.
Which is Dave
Oh,
at
Dave at STETZERelectric.com.
Okay, and I'll put the
telephone number is 608-989-2571.
Okay.
I don't think there's anybody we ever charged for answering questions for consulting with, and we get them from all over the world. It's just that, it might take a little bit, but once you have me, you got me until we're done.
Okay, so I will put all of this on the show notes. You've told a lot of stories and a lot of things. Do you have anything, a funny story or anything, just a personal? I'd like to end my with a funny story or something interesting. That, not that this hasn't been interesting. You got something funny or?
Well, I don't know. You kind of caught me off guard here, but
I like that. That's the whole point.
It's usually such a serious business, that
I know. And I don't like.
Well, actually, I just thought of one. I have this really good friend, and she's a nurse. Okay, and it's just happened. Okay.
Okay.
And so I'm doing the wind powers are terrible. Okay, and up in Canada, the government's made you put they give these farmers $50,000 for their piece of land to rent, so they can a year, so they can put these wind towers up, and the wind towers chop up the sine wave really bad and put all kinds of high frequencies back on the wires. So people all over are getting sick. Okay. So I had to go up there and take some measurements for this.
You mean all these towers, like all over, that you see across Kansas and all those are?
Yes. People
bad?
Can't live near them. Yeah. Yeah. All over. They're really terribly bad. And the bad part is there's an engineering solution, but they won't spend the money for it. And it's not that expensive. They need to put a filter on. Okay.
A filter like you sell?
Not that I sell. No, you want to make a tuned filter, okay? See what happens with wind. Not to get into that.
I didn't mean to. Yeah, I didn't mean to take you off.
But what happens with wind? We have AC. We turn it to DC. DC has to go back to AC, and we have an inverter. And usually it switches about 20 kilohertz or 50 kilohertz. And it gets on all those wires, and people get so sick they can't be around them, and they're declared health hazards in some area. Then it goes so far up, and then the state health department or something will say, oh, no, it's not. But there's political money there. The guy's making this decision not from a medical standpoint or some sort of engineering standpoint.
Meaning that it's not bad for you, but yet physically it is. And you can.
But there's all kinds of papers written by the IEEE and things like that says, hey, this is a problem. They don't comply with national standards, the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineer 519. You're putting too much high frequencies back on the line. So you can fix it. So anyway, I was this nurse. She was a retired nurse and stuff up there. And she said, we're going to have a meeting when you get these reports done to see what we have in common. And I said, well, okay, I can see these waveforms. There's something all in common with all of them, right? And spectrum. And I said, it's so clear that Ray Charles could see it. and so I just sent her an email. So she come back and says, who's Ray Charles? Isn't he some sort of musician or something? And I said, well, yes, but he's also blind. And I sent it back. And she said, how's a blind guy going to help us? And so I figured I'll let her sleep on that for a while. And the next day she called me up and
now that's a funny story. Yeah. That's a good way to end this. Dave, I appreciate you so incredibly much. This has been, as always, I learned so much from you, and you're just so friendly, and you make it, even though it's like you're trained in this and you're an expert, and your expertise is like out there, like so much higher than the average person. You really bring it down to where you really do a good job of bringing it down to where we can understand. And so I'm so grateful to you. Thank you, Dave. I love you so incredibly.
Yeah, we'll do it again. We'll give a little more notice, and we'll practice a little bit so we makes it a little smoother. But you can actually see household items and stuff. We'll just move over to the lab, and we'll get some subjects here, and
I'm really excited for that. Thank you for even offering that. The viewers are going to absolutely go crazy for that, because seeing is believing, and I'm really looking forward to that. So thank you so incredibly much.
You're welcome.
Thanks for listening to the Wild and Free Healthy You podcast. I hope you learned something new.
I appreciate you so incredibly mucho. Make sure you always take care of you first, because your health is your number one asset. I'm here to help you protect it. To listen to more episodes, check out LennyMotivates.com and follow me on Instagram at LennyMotivates. Don't forget to share this podcast with family and friends. Remember to always be your biggest fan and your biggest cheerleader, because no one can love you more than you can. Take care of you. Ciao.